But I found that through Christ, that's where the true freedom and the true liberty is.
And every one of us came here with something we can do. And my only hope is just to maximize it.
Holy are the peacemakers. I mean, that gives it a whole new perspective.
You know, this is the way to progress on the covenant path.
Hello and welcome to Latter-day Profiles. I'm Brian Howard. We're here at the LDS Motion Picture Studio in Provo, Utah today, and joining me is John Pierce. John, welcome.
Thanks for having me on today.
Good to have you here. John is one of the founding members of Bloom, a company we're going to talk about that provides some remote work opportunities to people worldwide. It's more complex than that, so we'll let you explain that a little bit later. I want to find out a little bit more about your background. I know you served a mission in Peru, which really got you interested in what you're doing now. Before that, though, you were a tennis player. Where did you grow up at, John?
So I grew up about 10 minutes here from LDS Motion Picture Studio in Provo. So I went to Timpview High School, and yeah, so I grew up real close to here.
Okay. So I know you were a competitive tennis player, and then that played a little bit. You'd shared some anecdotes with some folks about that. But tell me about your mission to Peru and how that impacted your take on life, I guess.
Yeah, so I mean, I went to a year of college, and in my freshman year in the fall, the mission age change happened.
Oh, yeah.
And I was a freshman on the tennis team at BYU, so I knew I couldn't leave until about, until the season finished in June. But I'd been planning to go and was excited to go, and I put in my papers and I got my call. Today's the 17th of February. Yeah, and I got my call February 14th, so 3 days ago.
Happy Valentine's.
Yeah, happy Valentine's Day 10 years ago. So 2013, I got my mission call like 3 days and 10 years ago, and I remember getting my mission call and being like, Trujillo, Peru. I mean, I'd never heard of the place. I pictured jungle. I thought I was going to the jungle somewhere in South America, and I showed up after the MTC. I went to the MTC down in Lima, and I showed up to Trujillo, and it was not the jungle. It's pure desert. So I think it's the second driest place in the world, which is kind of an interesting Trujillo, Peru fact. And in my first area, I was the only English speaker, I think, in the entire city. There was no grocery store or anything like that. It was mostly all dirt roads, and it was like I said, I grew up here in Provo, so it was a big transition to pop down to a place that was so different, and from day one, it just struck me that there was not a lot of opportunities for jobs there, and people hustled. They were doing different things day in and day out. One day they'd be selling gum in the streets. The next day they'd be out building houses or whatever they needed to do to get by. And I throughout my whole mission, I recognized and saw that it was a hard place to live at the time. And that that's changed me a lot, I think.
So you got home from your mission, went back to school. What were you thinking about doing at that point? What was your career goal?
So I wanted to go work at like a consulting firm. So I studied economics, and my plan was to go work at like McKinsey and Company or Bain or BCG or one of those firms. And so I kind of lined up my internships and things like that to do that. So I went and did a private equity internship at Huntsman Gay, and then the next year I interned, or I was interviewing to work at McKinsey and Company and Bain and BCG, and I had final round interviews with like every single one, and I got rejected by every single one. Oh, no. And at that point I was like, okay, what am I gonna do? And one of the things is I was applying to work at McKinsey in Lima for one of those internships because I wanted to go help Pathway to grow in Lima, and I wanted to help people in Lima to get better jobs. And I figured if I was working for a prestigious company like McKinsey, that I could help people that were church members to get jobs on the weekends or things like that. So when I got rejected, in the end, I actually I reached out to Pathway and I said, hey, I want to come intern for you guys. And so I ended up interning at Pathway and kind of starting a journey in a little different direction than consulting.
Yeah. Now, if people aren't as familiar with Pathway, Pathway Worldwide, it's been around for a few years now, but not as common knowledge as BYU and Ensign College, but lots of students worldwide taking courses to get degrees and taking Pathway as the way to do it, and it's in a lot of countries. So that was a good experience for you.
It was awesome. I mean, when I was a missionary, I was exposed to Pathway, and like I said, I was exposed to all these issues of people didn't have jobs and they didn't have necessarily access to education. And I heard about Pathway and I said, this is what I'm looking for, right? This is the solution to all these people's problems. And so I fell in love with Pathway pretty much immediately, and it was an awesome experience to go work there. And it was fun things to work on, but also great people to work around.
And when did you connect Eric Engebretson, if I say it right?
Yeah.
So he's your partner in this one with Bloom. How did you two connect, and how did this idea start? I was going to say Bloom, but that was a little bit too.
Yeah, so Eric moved into the home ward that I lived in when he was about 10, and we were both about 10, so we grew up together. So we did scouts together, we did young men's. We'd always take, the sacrament around to people that couldn't make it to church together every week, and so we grew up together, and like we've talked about before, and some of the listeners may have heard, is we both served missions in Latin America. So he served down in Argentina, like we've talked about today. I was down in Peru, and we came home from missions, and the experiences that I shared, he had very similar experiences. So we said, what can we do together to go help these people? And we thought about a lot of different companies that could, with really the end goal to help church members around the world to find better work. And eventually I had gone to work at BYU Pathway and was working on the education front, and he had gone to work for basically a remote payroll company that helped hire internationally. So we said, eventually after a few years of graduating from college, we said, let's bring those two things together, and let's take people that are educated internationally and let's help them to get hired by U.S. companies.
So let's talk about how this works and how that got started, because it's a great idea, but then you actually got to do the work to make it happen. So tell me about that, how it got up and running, and what the company does.
I'll start first with what we do, and basically what we do is we find people that are super talented and that speak great English and have other skills that the U.S. workforce needs. And we go to U.S. companies and we showcase these candidates, and we say, hey, what jobs do you have to fill inside of your company? And we take care of the hiring, so we charge a company X amount of dollars. We hire that person, we pay a little bit lower than that, so we take a little margin. And we deal with all those things, and we assign these agents to a specific U.S. company. So that's kind of our model. And the way it got started is just as simple as that, is we found a few people that we knew from different ways and that we knew were really great, and we started looking for companies that matched their skill set. And early on it was ones and twos and months between those placements, and then over time we found more and more people that were asking to come work with us, and we found more and more companies looking to hire, and we've kind of grown that way. So
when did you get started? How long have we been going?
We started in 2021, so about halfway through 2021 we had our first placement.
So tell me about finding companies, the process, knocking on doors, cold calling. How do you find companies that might be interested?
Yeah, we started out by calling people we knew, right? So we'd talk to companies we'd worked at, or friends that we knew that worked at different companies, and cold calling, I guess, but when you know them, it's a little easier. And we did that for probably about the first year, as mostly focusing on, founder-led sales of let's use connections that we have to find companies to hire. And then we went to a little bit more of the cold outreach and LinkedIn or cold emails or text, getting numbers from different softwares that they have and calling people. And in December we actually hired our first salespeople for our team internally. So we're kind of trying to expand that way, and our big goal this year is we work with about 30 companies, and we want to work with about 80 by the end of the year. So we've got a lot of cold calling to do.
Yeah, got to call them. What's the reaction from the companies initially? It probably has changed over time as you've had some success. So from initial till now, what's been the reaction of the companies that you contact?
Yeah, I mean, when we first reach out, there's mixed reactions, right? There's a lot of people that love it from the beginning, and they say this is great, and we need workers. There's a lot of jobs available right now that they have a hard time filling. Companies here in Utah, so a lot of companies are ecstatic and they're ready to jump on this offer. Other companies, they feel some negative connotations towards helping or towards hiring people from different countries, and they've had bad experiences in the past. But we kind of explain that this is different than most of the models that they've usually seen in the past. Of generally speaking, instead of shipping work overseas, you're more bringing people virtually into their company to help, and so we kind of mold them into their culture and into their training processes and their management processes. So it creates a little bit more seamless product that they feel really good about as they understand that.
Sure. What kind of jobs are we talking about? Probably a variety, but what kind of jobs that are available?
Yeah, we have about 1,200 people currently staffed, and so yeah, it's a variety of jobs. But we do a lot of customer support, tech support, sales. We do some back-end work like accounting. We do some tech work as software development, data analysis, things like that. That's kind of the main categories of jobs that we fill right now.
Okay, so there are always two sides to this. So you got the employers, then you got those people that you're trying to help out in these other countries. How do you connect with them? How do they know that this is a possibility, and what's your kind of vetting process to connect with these folks?
Yeah, so like I mentioned at the beginning, it was really Eric and I reaching out to people we knew and trying to find one or two people and trying to place them into companies. Over the first few months, we stood up a website and we have an application there. And what's naturally happened is as we've placed more and more people through word of mouth, we get tons and tons of applications. So we get a few hundred applications a week, generally speaking. And like I said, we currently have about 1,200 placed. So generally speaking, we have way more applicants than we have jobs at this point. And so what we're really trying to focus on is getting more companies in the pipeline, because the candidates come, they are excited for the opportunities. On average, people are doubling their salaries by working for us. So they're excited to come work for us.
Yeah, tell me some stories. I mean, there's probably some of the people you know and maybe not know as well, but you know of them that have received jobs and changed their situation. What are some of the examples you have of people who've improved their lifestyle?
Yeah, one of our workers that comes to mind initially his name's Carlos Rojas, and he served down in Lima, Peru, so close to a place that's close to my heart. And when he applied to work with us and was making about $200 a month selling like cell phone plans. So he was selling cell phone plans on the street, door to door, down in Lima. And we brought him in and we placed him with a company called Balance of Nature that sells supplements. And he was kind of in a sales type role there. And he, from day one, he tripled his income. And he has done an awesome job. He's been there about 8 months, and now he's a team lead over a group of people that are also that are hired through Bloom. And he's gone from making about $200 a month to, I think he's more than 5x that salary, and it's been awesome. He's got a young family. He's got, I think, 2 little kids, and I went down to Peru in November with my wife, and we saw him, and it was really fun to, it's a virtual job, so a lot of times we've never met any of these people in person. So it was really cool to see somebody, and he's doing an awesome job and getting a lot of experience on top of a lot better income.
Yeah. Imagine there's probably a lot of hurdles to get through because you're going international. There's probably some legal parameters, technical issues, right? Can you work remotely? Does the tech support there to do that kind of stuff? What are kind of some of the things you have to jump through to make sure that everything works out?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a vetting we've got a team of people that works kind of internal to Bloom, and that checks all of these things that you're talking about. So one of the big ones is English level. So we've got a few different screenings for English comprehension, English accent, for depending on the role. As well as, on top of the English, we also have to look for specific skills that job needs. So if it's a sales role, it's maybe a little different than a customer support role, different than a software development role. we've got a team that vets kind of the ability to do the job. And then there's that whole tech part that you're talking about of, hey, is there internet in the place that they're living, and what's their computer like to do these jobs? And we do our best to vet those things, and we've found, little by little, each country has the best internet provider and the different tricks for each country that we try to help people to implement to be more effective in a remote environment.
What's been your feedback from the companies that have successfully employed some of the folks that have come through Bloom?
I was on the phone with a client 2 days ago, and we had a group of leaders. So there was like about 5 leaders in the company from the different departments, and one of those leaders said, "We love Bloom. We love our agents from Bloom. And I would rather have Bloom agents than the people we used to work with." And I don't think it was meant to be negative in any way towards the people that she's worked with. She just says that the Bloom workers that are from all these different countries are so responsible, that they take their jobs so seriously, and that they're really responsive to feedback and things like that. So what this team leader said was, "I'd rather have Bloom people than any other group of people, and I want more of them." So,
Well, I know you're not exclusive to members of the Church of Jesus Christ or Latter-day Saints, but that's a pool that you already knew, and you draw from. So a lot of return missionaries, a lot of members of the church, you end up being that pool of potential employees.
yeah, I mean, like I said, a lot of it's through word of mouth, and so a lot of our agents at the beginning were people that Eric and I knew, and the people that they know are also members of the church. So it's kind of spread in that way, and so at this point, I think about a little bit more than 90% of our workers are members of the church, and a big chunk of them are, more than 60%, are return missionaries. And we built it really to help the people that we saw in our missions. But return missionaries have so many skills that in Utah is recognized as you build skills on a mission that help you in the workforce. It's not always recognized as much internationally, how much a mission truly builds somebody to be a great worker in a capitalist environment.
Yeah. What's your hope, you and Eric? What's your goal? What goals are you set? Obviously, you want to increase the number quite a bit, and you're in, I'd say, 65 countries. Is that right?
Yeah, we're in about 65 countries, and I think our vision is we want every return missionary in the world to know that when they finish a mission and they speak English well enough, that they can come get a job, and that they can get a job that pays them enough to start a family and to do those things that help you to grow as a person. With 1,000 people, we're a little bit short of that, so we've got a lot of work ahead of us.
We can talk a little bit about your personal life, and being an entrepreneur is a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah.
So how long have you been married now, John?
So I've been married 2 years almost. So
Okay.
I'm hitting my 2-year anniversary in a few weeks.
So that coincided pretty closely with the starting up of the company. Is that right?
Yeah,
right in there.
I think God probably knew that I wouldn't have been able to do this without a great wife, and so I started this. I mean, we had our first placement, I think 3 months after we got married, me and my wife, and so she's been with me the whole way. Early on, she was our first worker, maybe. She was calling people from different countries to interview them, and she was very involved at the beginning, and over time has stepped away a little bit.
So, as an entrepreneur, it's always interesting because, when you go work for somebody else, then you go work your hours and you come home. This is very different because it probably lives with you all the time. How do you try and balance it out? Home time, your wife's a part-time employee. How do you try and balance that out so you kind of get some separate time?
I mean, we're still figuring that out. So it's a tricky thing where even if you're not actually working, you're thinking about the different problems that go on through the day, and you're trying to grow a business, especially a business that we feel so passionate about. It's helpful that my wife, she believes in this mission as much as I do, if not more. She served a mission down in Chile, so she saw all these same things that I did, and she worked in an orphanage for a while in Ecuador, and so she's very passionate about the mission of Bloom. And on the more practical side, I've done some different things to try to separate. Like I change clothes when I finish work, into different clothes. Even though I work from my bedroom, I have an office in my bedroom, but I change clothes, and I got called as a bishop about a year ago, so it was a 1-year anniversary present, I guess. And I bought an iPad recently just for bishop work, so that when I'm doing work for my calling versus my job, I try to keep those things separate, to teach my mind to turn on and off. But like I said, I'm still trying to figure all of that out.
Yeah, it sounds like from the start. I mean, you had well, you really wanted to help the people out that were on your mission, and it sounds like things have really, you've had inspiration to move that direction. Is that something you thought about, the direction, the inspiration you get to move forward? And does that help you have confidence in moving forward?
Yeah, I think Eric and I both feel that God has been with us this whole way, and it's not because we're great. It's it's because God really loves His children all over the world, and God wants to bless them, and we feel we've got the right experiences to help with that work, and God has been with us the whole way, and I'm sure He'll continue to help us as long as we keep focusing on the right things, and He wants to bless people, which is very in line with what Bloom does day in and day out.
Yeah, it sounds like you shared some examples, but as from what you've seen, going from like what sounds like us in the U.S. or not very much, like $200 a week or something like that. How much does it take really to make a huge difference in somebody's life to just increase their salary, even by this much?
I mean, one of the things we talk a little bit about, and we have tried to work with other organizations to understand, is something we would call like a church living wage.
Mm-hmm.
So how much you need in each country around the world to serve as an elders quorum president, or as a primary president, or as a bishop, or how much income do you need to fulfill a calling and be with your family and provide for all those needs. And we kind of have some idea of what that means, and our goal is always to bring people closer to that or even above that. And so, for example, in Africa, that number is probably close to $600 a month, which is very different, of course, than it is in Utah,
Right.
and very different than it is in Latin America or the Philippines. And like I said, we're in 65 countries, so it's tons of places that are very different, and we try to get people to that, what we call, the church living wage.
And you're doing some travel to go and check out some places in the near future, right? To go and look at some places.
Yeah, so the first year we were just, kind of really trying to hit the work and get as many people into jobs as we can. But we're going to travel a little bit more this year to understand parts of the world that we don't understand that well, that we've never visited, and so but we've got to help people all over. So on next Wednesday, Eric and I are heading to Papua New Guinea and the Philippines to learn. We've got about 30 workers in Papua New Guinea, which is a little tiny place, and we're trying to learn what it's like there. And these people that are doing remote jobs there, what does the day-to-day look like for them in reality, and what is that church living wage, and how has the job helped them, or what can we do more to support them in their lives and their careers.
Well, John, it's been a pleasure. By the way, congratulations. Soon to become father, right? Pretty
Yeah,
exciting.
my wife's doing 3 weeks or so we're excited for our
right.
first boy.
All right, getting the baseball bats, the tennis rackets out already.
Yeah, either way, right?
Well, John, it's been a real pleasure to talk to you. So if people want more information, they can check it out at Bloom on the web, right?
Yeah, it's www.hirebloom.com.
Hirebloom.com and check it out and get more information.
HIRE.
That's right. Right. Yes, that's right. No, get hired. That's great. John, it was a pleasure to talk to you. Thanks for coming.
Okay, yeah, nice meeting you, and thanks for having me on.